The massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that surrounded the central speaking area. Ambassador Kim Hanna walked slowly across the smooth floor, her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against a rainbow of colors from 47 different alien species. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. She knew that billions of humans across the galaxy were watching this moment. Above her, the towering crystal beings hummed in low frequencies that made the air vibrate. To her left, the spider-like peacekeepers clicked their metal claws against their platforms. On her right, the floating jellyfish-shaped collective pulsed with synchronized lights. Every species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was present, and they all had one thing in common. They were afraid of humanity. The lead crystal, easily 3 times Hannah's height, spoke first. Its voice echoed through universal translators, filling the chamber with words that would change everything. Human representative, it began, your species has been observed and judged. In just 180 years since first contact, humanity has spread to 57 worlds. Each of these colonies contains military technology that exceeds what most council species possess. Hannah listened without moving. She had expected this. Dr. Park Jinsu back on Earth had warned her that this day would come. The aliens were not angry about human expansion. They were terrified of how quickly humans learned and adapted. A peacekeeper stepped forward, its 6 legs making sharp sounds on the crystal floor. Your weapons development has accelerated beyond acceptable limits. Your civilian populations carry personal defense devices more advanced than our military equipment from 50 years ago. Your children learn combat techniques in educational facilities. Most concerning, added a floating collective member, its voice speaking in perfect harmony with 12 others, is your species' tendency to view conflict as solvable through superior firepower. This mindset threatens the peace we have maintained for 10,000 years. Around the chamber, other species nodded their agreement. The snake-like traders hissed their approval. The bird-like scouts flapped their wings in agitation. Even the peaceful plant beings rustled their leaves in what Hannah recognized as distress. The crystal leader raised one of its massive arms. Therefore, the Galactic Council Senate has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will surrender all advanced weaponry within 72 standard galactic hours. You will submit to Council oversight of all technological development. Your military forces will be disbanded and replaced with Council peacekeeping units. The chamber fell completely silent. Hannah could hear her own breathing in the sudden quiet. Failure to comply, the crystal continued, will result in complete economic embargo. No council species will trade with human worlds. No human ships will be permitted to travel through council space. If necessary, military action will be taken to ensure compliance. Hannah finally spoke, her voice clear and steady. And if we refuse? A peacekeeper general, covered in battle scars from ancient wars, stepped forward. Then humanity will discover why the galaxy has been at peace for so long. Not because we are weak, but because we learned long ago that some threats must be eliminated completely. The threat hung in the air like poison. Hannah understood the real message: submit or be destroyed. She thought about the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, filled with families who had left Earth seeking new lives among the stars. She thought about the children being born on distant worlds, who would grow up either as subject to the Council or not at all. I need time to communicate with my government, Hannah said. 72 hours, the crystal repeated. Not one moment longer. Use this time wisely, human. Your species' survival depends on the wisdom of your choice. As the council members began to leave their platforms, Hannah noticed something that would prove important later. Despite their unified front, she could see fear in their movements. The peacekeepers gripped their weapons too tightly. The collective members stayed closer together than usual. Even the ancient crystals dimmed their inner light as they spoke about humanity. Dr. Park Jinsu had been right. This was not about human weapons or expansion. This was about something far more dangerous from the aliens' perspective: the speed at which humanity changed and grew. Walking back to her transport ship, Hannah activated her emergency communication link to Earth. President Lee Miho appeared on her screen within seconds. How bad is it, he asked. Total surrender or extinction, Hannah replied. But Miho, I think Jinsu was right about something else too. They're more afraid of us than we realize. The president nodded grimly. Then we better make sure our response gives them something worth being afraid of. As her ship lifted off from Nexus Prime, Hannah looked back at the massive space station that housed the galactic government. In 72 hours, she would return with humanity's answer. She just hoped that Dr. Park's crazy plan would work, because the alternative was too terrible to imagine. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for Earth's response to an ultimatum that would change everything forever. The emergency meeting room beneath Geneva buzzed with nervous energy as Earth's most powerful leaders gathered around a massive holographic table. President Lee Miho sat at the head, his face grim as he watched data streams flowing across the displays. Military generals, scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts filled every chair, but all eyes focused on a quiet man standing at the center of the room. Dr. Park Jinsu had spent 20 years studying alien civilizations, learning their languages, understanding their histories. Now, with humanity facing extinction, his research had become the most important information on Earth. He moved his hands through the holographic displays, pulling up files that contained 50,000 years of galactic history. Look at this data carefully, Jinsu said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Every single council species achieved their current position through violence. The crystals didn't just expand. They absorbed 14 smaller civilizations completely, taking their technology and erasing their cultures. General Choi Suna leaned forward, studying the ancient battle records. These wars happened thousands of years ago. What does this have to do with us now? Everything, Jinsu replied, switching to a timeline that showed the formation of the council. The Peacekeepers destroyed 6 entire species before they decided to become Peacekeepers. The collective consumed 3 star systems, turning billions of individual beings into their hive mind. The traders enslaved entire worlds to build their economic empire. President Lee frowned as he read the translated documents. But they formed a council to end all that. They created the peace that has lasted 10,000 years. Exactly. Jinsu nodded, his excitement growing. They stopped fighting because they were exhausted. After millennia of war, they finally realized that constant conflict was destroying the galaxy. So they made a deal. No more expansion, no more conquest. Just maintain what they have. Dr. Yoon Daeho from Cultural Affairs stood up, understanding beginning to show in his eyes. And then we showed up. 57 worlds in 180 years, Jinsu confirmed. We've achieved in 2 centuries what took them tens of thousands of years. But here's what terrifies them. We did it without destroying anyone. We didn't conquer the crystals or absorb the traders. We just grew faster and stronger than they thought possible. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Defense Minister Kim Yuna was the first to speak. They're not afraid of our weapons. They're afraid that we proved their way wasn't the only way. More than that, Jinsu continued, pulling up psychological profiles of council species. They're afraid that other species will see what we've accomplished and start asking questions. What if the galaxy doesn't need the council's control? What if there's a better way to live among the stars? General Choi slammed her hand on the table. Then we fight. Our technology is advancing faster than theirs. Give us a few more years, and we can match their fleet numbers. With what? President Lee asked quietly. They have 10,000 ships ready to move against us right now. Even if we could build a fleet that size, how many humans would die in the process? How many of our colonies would be destroyed? Then what do you suggest? General Choi demanded, surrender? Let them disarm us and turn us into another subject species. Dr. Yoon Daeho walked to the display, studying the cultural data that Jinsu had collected. What if we respond with something they've never seen before? Meaning what? Defense Minister Kim asked. Jinsu smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Every council species follows the same pattern. They see a problem, and they either fight it or control it. They've never encountered a species that responds to threats with curiosity instead of fear. You want us to be curious about an extinction threat? General Choi looked incredulous. I want us to be human, Jinsu replied. Think about our history. when we encountered new cultures on Earth. Yes, sometimes we fought, but more often we learned from each other. We shared food, music, stories, technology. We didn't just conquer, we connected. President Lee studied the alien psychological profiles. You think we can connect with species that want to destroy us? I think they want to destroy us because they don't understand us, Yundeho said, excitement building in his voice. They're expecting us to respond like every other species they've encountered, with weapons and threats and demands for territory. So, we give them something else entirely, Jinsu concluded. We show them what makes humans different. Not our weapons or our technology, but our ability to find common ground with anyone, anywhere. The room erupted in arguments. Military leaders demanded battle plans. Diplomats wanted negotiation strategies. Scientists suggested technological demonstrations. But President Lee raised his hand for silence, studying the data with new eyes. "How long do we have?" he asked. 70 hours and 16 minutes, his aide replied. "Then we better start making phone calls," Lee said, standing up, not to our generals or our weapons manufacturers, to our artists, our chefs, our musicians, our storytellers. General Choi stared at him in disbelief. "You're really going to bet humanity's survival on a cultural exchange program?" President Lee looked around the room at the faces of people who held Earth's future in their hands. "No, General. We're going to bet on the one thing that has always made humans special, our ability to turn enemies into friends." The countdown to humanity's answer had begun. Admiral Sukmairi stood on the bridge of the EDF Harmony, watching through the massive viewport as the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled in the dark space beyond the Veil Nebula. 10,000 ships stretched across the starfield like a metal constellation, each one representing the combined might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy since before humans had learned to make fire. The sight should have terrified her, but Myri felt only confusion as she read the latest orders from Earth Command. Her tactical officer, Commander Oh Hyunwoo, looked equally puzzled as he handed her the passenger manifest for their next mission. "Ma'am, these orders have to be wrong," Hyunwoo said, pointing at his display. "Earth Command wants us to pick up musicians, artists, and chefs. We're facing the biggest military threat in human history, and they're sending us a cooking show." Myri scrolled to the list of passengers scheduled to board her ship. Kim Soo-young, master chef specializing in traditional Korean cuisine. Park Min-sik, classical musician who played something called a gaegeum. Lee Jae-won, storyteller who had traveled to every human colony collecting folk tales. Not a single soldier or weapons expert among them. "Contact her command," she ordered. "Ask for confirmation of these orders." While they waited for a response, reports flooded in from across human space. The military shipyards that should have been working overtime to build warships were instead producing transport vessels designed for comfort, not combat. The weapons factories were retooling to manufacture musical instruments and art supplies. Most shocking of all, the legendary human military academies were sending their cadets home early, so the facilities could be converted into cultural centers. Admiral, her communications officer called out, "We're receiving similar reports from every human fleet. The colonies are launching ships filled with teachers, dancers, and poets." Colony New Busan just sent out a transport carrying nothing but kimchi and traditional costumes. Commander Hyunwoo shook his head in disbelief. "Have our leaders completely lost their minds? We have 48 hours until the council deadline, and we're preparing for a festival instead of a war." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on council ships as alien intelligence officers try to make sense of human behavior. In the command center of the peacekeeper flagship Eternal Order, General Vex studied intercepted human transmissions with growing bewilderment. "Play that transmission again," he ordered his intelligence officer. The main screen filled with an image of humans on Colony New Seoul, not preparing weapons or building defenses, but dancing in the streets while music filled the air. Children laughed as they learned traditional songs from their grandparents. Adults shared meals with neighbors they barely knew, creating massive outdoor feasts that seemed to have no military purpose whatsoever. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "intercepting thousands of similar transmissions." Human colonies across the galaxy are hosting what their language translates as cultural festivals. They appear to be celebrating instead of preparing for extinction. General Vex had fought in wars across 17 star systems. He had seen species face annihilation with courage, with desperation, with rage. But he had never seen a species respond to an extinction threat by throwing parties. Are they mocking us? He wondered aloud. His tactical advisor, a scarred veteran of the ancient Purge Wars, studied the data streams. Unknown, sir. Our psychological analysis teams cannot determine human intentions. Either this is the most sophisticated psychological warfare we've ever encountered, or they have genuinely lost their collective sanity. Similar confusion reigned throughout the Council fleet. The ancient crystals, who had not communicated directly for over a century, began resonating with frequencies that their translators identified as uncertainty. The hive-minded collective, accustomed to perfect coordination, found their shared thoughts disrupted by questions they could not answer. Even the emotionless traders began calculating scenarios that their economic models could not predict. Back aboard the EDF Harmony, Admiral Myrie received her confirmation from Earth Command. The orders were correct, and there was more. Her ship was to proceed to the neutral zone near the Kepler station, where they would meet with similar vessels from other human fleets. Their mission was not to prepare for battle, but to prepare for something called the demonstration. Ma'am, Commander Hyung reported, "We've got incoming passengers. The cultural delegation from Earth is boarding now." Through the docking bay cameras, Myrie watched as the strangest military unit in human history came aboard her ship. An elderly woman carrying ancient musical instruments. A young man with arms covered in paint stains who kept sketching the alien architecture of the station. A middle-aged woman whose luggage seemed to contain nothing but cooking equipment and mysterious sealed containers. Chef Kim Soo-young was the first to reach the bridge, bowing politely to Admiral Myrie. "Thank you for the transport, Admiral. I hope you don't mind, but I've taken the liberty of preparing dinner for your crew. Nothing brings people together like sharing a good meal." "Ma'am," Myrie said carefully, "we're heading toward the largest hostile fleet in galactic history. Are you sure you understand the situation?" Chef Kim smiled, the same warm expression she might have worn while welcoming guests to her restaurant back on Earth. "Admiral, I've been cooking for 50 years. I know that the hungriest people are often the angriest people, and I've never met anyone who stayed angry after tasting my bulgogi." As the human fleet moved toward its mysterious rendezvous, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity's final answer would be. The crystal chamber on Nexus Prime filled with tension as Ambassador Kim Hanna walked across the smooth floor once again. This time, however, she was not alone. Behind her marched an incredible procession of 312 people, each representing a different human culture from across the galaxy. They carried no weapons, no shields, no advanced technology that the Council might fear. Instead, their hands held musical instruments, paintings, books, and containers that filled the air with strange and wonderful smells. The alien delegates watched in confusion as this unusual parade entered their sacred chamber. The towering crystal beings dimmed their inner light, uncertain about what they were witnessing. The spider-like peacekeepers clicked their claws nervously against their platforms. The floating collective members pulsed with rapid, confused patterns of light. Ambassador Hanna stopped in the center of the chamber and bowed respectfully to the assembled council. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the vast space. "Humanity has considered your ultimatum carefully. We accept your judgment completely." A ripple of satisfaction moved through the council. Several peacekeepers relaxed their grip on their weapons, the lead crystal being brightened slightly, preparing to hear humanity surrender. "You are correct," Hanna continued. "Our weapons are indeed dangerously destabilizing the galactic peace. They threaten everything you have built over thousands of years. Therefore, we will demonstrate exactly how dangerous these weapons truly are." The satisfaction in the chamber quickly turned to confusion. What kind of demonstration was this supposed to be? Where were the human soldiers? Where were their famous weapons? Instead of answers, the humans began to act in ways that baffled every alien mind present. Chef Bae Soo-yoon stepped forward, carrying a collection of steaming containers. She opened them one by one, releasing aromas that had never existed in the council chamber before. The smell of garlic, sesame oil, and fermented vegetables mixed with the sense of grilled meat and sweet rice cakes. "This is kimchi," Chef Bei announced, offering small portions to the nearest council members. "It has been keeping humans healthy and happy for thousands of years. Please, try some." Several peacekeepers recoiled, thinking it might be poison, but one young crystal being, curious despite the tension, extended a feeding appendage and tasted the strange human food. Its internal light suddenly flared brighter, and it made a sound that the translators identified as pleasure. Before the council could process this development, musician Kong Tae-won began playing his hegium. The ancient Korean string instrument produced sounds unlike anything in the galactic database. The melody was haunting and beautiful, speaking of loss and hope, of journeys across vast distances, of finding home in unexpected places. The music filled the chamber, and several species found themselves moving in rhythm without understanding why. Artist Nam Yunji unveiled her paintings, but these were not images of human conquest or military might. Instead, they showed humans and aliens working together, learning from each other, sharing meals and stories. One painting depicted a human child teaching a young crystal how to fold paper flowers. Another showed a peacekeeper and a human scientist collaborating on some complex equation, both beings laughing at a shared joke. "These are humanity's most dangerous weapons," Ambassador Hannah explained as the council watched in stunned silence. "Our languages that change and grow, absorbing words and ideas from everyone we meet. Our music that makes others feel emotions they cannot explain. Our food that turns strangers into friends around a shared table. Our stories that help others dream of possibilities they never imagined." The chamber erupted in confusion. This was not warfare as any species understood it. There were no threats, no demands, no shows of force. Instead, there was something far more disturbing to the ancient order of the galaxy. Genuine kindness offered without expectation of return. The ancient crystals, who had not spoken in council sessions for centuries, suddenly began to resonate. Their harmonic frequencies matched the rhythm of the human music, creating a sound that had never existed before. The rigid, emotionless beings were experiencing something they had forgotten they were capable of: wonder. The hive-minded collective faced an even more profound disruption as they watched the human artists work, creating something new and unique in each moment. Individual thoughts began to form within their shared consciousness. For the first time in thousands of years, collective members found themselves curious about things that served no practical purpose. Even the warlike peacekeepers found their certainty shaking. How do you fight an enemy that offers you food instead of battle? How do you maintain military discipline when the enemy's children are teaching your soldiers how to make music? "We don't seek to conquer anyone," Ambassador Hannah said, her voice gentle but firm. "We don't want to rule the galaxy or impose our will on other species. We only want to share what makes us human: our curiosity about others, our joy in learning new things, our belief that differences make life more interesting, not more dangerous." The lead crystal being finally found its voice, though it trembled with uncertainty. This is not how civilizations interact. There must be hierarchy, control, order. Without these structures, chaos will consume everything. Chef Bei approached the towering alien with a bowl of soup. "Try this," she said simply. "It's called friendship soup. My grandmother taught me that no problem is too big to solve when people eat together." As the crystal being tentatively tasted the soup, its entire body began to glow with a warm, golden light that had not been seen in their species for millennia. Around the chamber, other aliens found themselves accepting human offerings, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The galaxy's understanding of power was about to change forever. 6 months had passed since the day that changed everything, and Ambassador Kim Hannah stood in what used to be the Council's military command center. The cold, sterile room with its weapon displays and battle maps had been transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before: the interspecies cultural exchange hub. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, each representing a different species or human culture. The air filled with a mixture of sounds that would have been impossible before. alien music blending with human songs, the laughter of children from 12 different species, and the gentle hum of universal translators working overtime to help new friends understand each other. Through the massive windows, Hannah watched ships docking at the station. But these were not the warships that once gathered here to plan military campaigns. Instead, she saw vessels designed for comfort and cultural exchange, ships with kitchens instead of weapon bays, art studios instead of ammunition storage, and meeting rooms where beings from across the galaxy could sit together and share their stories. In the main hall, former Admiral Sook Myri was teaching a group of young peacekeepers how to fold paper cranes. The fearsome warriors, who had once practiced combat maneuvers, now concentrated intensely on creating delicate origami birds. Their teacher, a human child named Park Somi from Colony New Seoul, patiently showed them how to make precise folds, while her grandmother shared the ancient story behind the paper crane tradition. Careful with that corner. Somi instructed a massive peacekeeper whose claws were clearly not designed for delicate work. My grandmother says that every crane carries a wish for peace. The warrior looked confused. But why do you fold paper when you could program a machine to create perfect cranes instantly? Because, Somi explained with a wisdom that only children possess, the imperfect ones we make with our hands carry more love. Nearby, Chef Bae Suyun had established what she called the Galaxy Kitchen, where beings from different species learned to cook each other's traditional foods. The results were sometimes strange. Crystal beings had no sense of taste as humans understood it, so they experienced food through chemical analysis, but the joy of sharing and learning remained universal. Today we learn to make dumplings, Chef Bae announced to a mixed group of aliens and humans. But first, everyone must share a story from their home while we work with our hands. A young collective member, experiencing individual thought for the first time, raised a tentacle nervously. I remember a song my birth pod sang before I joined the greater mind. Is that the kind of story you mean? Perfect, Chef Bae smiled. Cooking and stories go together like rice and kimchi. Dr. Park Jinsu entered the hub carrying a datapad, his face bright with excitement that had become familiar over the past months. He hurried to Ambassador Hannah, who was watching the cultural exchanges with a mixture of pride and amazement. Hannah, we received something incredible, Jinsu said, barely able to contain his enthusiasm. A transmission from the Outer Rim, beyond any space we've explored before. An unknown species has been listening to our music broadcasts as they travel through space. They want to make contact. Hannah studied the data, remembering her first day in the original council chambers when she had felt so small and frightened. Now she understood what humanity had always possessed but never recognized as their greatest strength, the ability to see potential friends in the most unexpected places. The message from the unknown species was simple but powerful. We hear your songs in the darkness between stars. We have never heard sound that speak of joy without conquest, of growth without destruction. We wish to learn more about this thing you call friendship. What should our response be? Jinsu asked. Before Hannah could answer, the sounds of music filled the air. In the center of the hub, something extraordinary was happening. The crystal beings had learned to modulate their natural harmonic resonance to match human musical instruments. The peacekeepers discovered that their clicking claws could create complex rhythms. The collective found that their synchronized light patterns could provide visual harmony to accompany the songs. Together, aliens and humans were creating something entirely new, music that no single species could have imagined alone. Prepare a cultural exchange ship, Hannah told Jinsu, watching as a peacekeeper child laughed while learning to play a human flute. Make sure we include extra musical instruments, art supplies, and recipe books. And ask Chef Bae to prepare samples of food from every species in the hub. What about security? Jinsu asked out of habit. Hannah smiled, thinking about the question that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Our security will be a children's choir singing songs in 20 different languages, artists ready to paint portraits of our new friends, and cooks prepared to share the best meal they've ever tasted. As the first notes of the galaxy's newest musical collaboration drifted through the hub's corridors, Hannah reflected on humanity's greatest victory. They had not conquered the galaxy or forced other species to change. Instead, they had convinced the entire galactic community to lower their walls, open their hearts, and discover that the universe was far more interesting when everyone contributed their own unique gifts to the cosmic song. In the distance, stars twinkle with the promise of new friendships waiting to be discovered, and humanity's most dangerous weapon, their infectious enthusiasm for connection, prepare to claim another victory for peace.